I'm crazy about this city. Daylight slants like a razor, cutting the in half. In the top half, I see looking faces, and it's not easy to tell which are people, which the work of stonemasons. Below is shadow, where any blasé thing takes place. Clarinets and lovemaking, fists and the voices of sorrowful women. A city like this one makes me dream tall and feel in on things. When I look over the strips of green grass lining the river, at church steeples and into the cream and copper halls of apartment buildings, I'm strong. Alone, yes, but top-notch and indestructible. Like the city in 1926, when all the wars are over and there will never be another one. Nobody says it's pretty here. Nobody says it's easy either. What it is decisive. And if you pay attention to the street plans, all laid out, city can't hurt you. I haven't got any muscles, so I can't really be expected to defend myself. But I do know how to take precaution. Mostly it's making sure no one knows all there is to know about me. Second, I watch everything and everyone and try to figure out their plans, their reasonings, long before they do. You have to understand what it's like taking on a big city. I'm exposed to all sorts of ignorance and criminality. Still, this is the only life for me.
Good morning and welcome. The reason why we're here, the extraordinary Toni Morrison. And if you're looking to run by that book, it's Jazz, available at stores near you, independent bookstores especially. My name is Michael Cadden, and I'm a university lecturer in the program in theater at Princeton's Lewis Center for the Arts. I was an occasional co-conspirator with Toni on any numbers of arts projects, and one of the highlights of my resume is a course that we co-taught. The Lewis Center for the Arts, incidentally, is a relatively new academic unit at Princeton, and might indeed have something of a link with the person we're celebrating today, insofar as when there was a worldwide headline in 1993, which read, "Toni Morrison of Princeton University wins the Nobel Prize in Literature," I had a feeling that good things might happen for the arts at Princeton as a result. At any rate, it's certainly a special honor to serve as your MC today as we officially dedicate the Postal Service's new Toni Morrison Forever stamp. Toni, you're a stamp. It's amazing. We have an exciting program for you. If you're sharing on social media, we hope that you will use our hashtag, hashtag Toni Morrison stamp, to help publicize today's event, and we thank you for that. Somewhere Toni is laughing. This was a woman of 117 different kinds of laugh, right? But I think that 118 just got added. A laughter of joy, of self-deprecation, of celebration. I'm sure she's with us here. At this time, we ask everyone to stand for the presentation of colors by the Princeton University Army ROTC Honor Guard, followed by the Black National Anthem and the National Anthem of the United States, formed by Old Na Soul a cappella group. So, ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Seems like we've had changes along the way, so bear with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. My thanks to the Princeton Army ROTC Honor Guard and the members of Old Na Soul, Adia Allison, Allende Bradford, and Carrington Johnson for getting things off to that start. We're fortunate to have several guests of honor in the audience, and I'd like to acknowledge them at this time. If possible, please stand and wave as I call your name. New Jersey Assemblywoman Carol Murphy. Carol Denard from the Toni Morrison Society. John Mulholland, Executive Director of the Association of Schools and Agencies for the Handicapped, and Sonia Gawas, a council member from the Township of Windsor. Thanks so much for joining us here today. And now let me ask those folks who are going to speak this morning to join me on the stage. So I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Chris Eisgruber, the 20th president of Princeton University. a graduate of Princeton's great class of 1983. President Eisgruber has served in this position since 2013, and he previously was the provost of the university for 9 years, having joined the faculty in 2001. He's been a longtime champion of diversity and inclusion here at Princeton and at other institutions, and a leading voice in Washington for the value of university research and of a liberal arts education. He has emphasized the importance of both free speech and inclusivity to Princeton's mission, championed our commitment to service, and launched initiatives to fortify Princeton's connections to innovation in New Jersey and beyond. So please join me in welcoming President Eisgruber.
Well, good morning. It's great to see you. I'm very delighted to welcome all of you to Princeton today to celebrate the life and work of Toni Morrison. It's a privilege to be able to host this event here at Princeton because Toni Morrison has mattered tremendously to our campus and to our community. Morrison joined the Princeton faculty in 1989 as the Robert F. Goheen Professor in the Humanities. In 1994, she founded the Princeton Atelier, a program that brings renowned artists and performers from a wide range of disciplines to campus to collaborate with our students and scholars. The creative work that results from those collaborations is often spectacular. In 2017, Princeton dedicated a prominent campus building to Toni Morrison in recognition of her many contributions to this university and community. Throughout her life, she was a transformative presence who inspired those around her, and Princeton continues to reflect the remarkable effects of her legacy. As a teacher, she helped her students develop their narrative voices and hone the craft of writing. As a colleague, she was generous with her time and her wisdom. She was an outstanding scholar who recognized the value of interdisciplinary collaborations and artistic work to the academic enterprise. She was a mentor for generations of students, including our Dean of the Faculty, Jean Jarrett, who will speak later, and she was a role model who inspired artists of color to pursue their creative aspirations. And of course, she was a writer of rare genius, brilliant originality, and genuinely historic importance. Today's event is one of the many ways we are celebrating Professor Morrison this spring. She is the subject of concurrent exhibitions at Firestone Library and the Princeton University Art Museum's Art at Bainbridge Gallery in downtown Princeton. These illuminating exhibitions explore her creative process and the wide-reaching influence of her extraordinary work. I encourage you to visit them if you can. Thank you again for being here to take part in this special celebration. I'm grateful for the opportunity to honor Toni Morrison's outstanding achievements with all of you today, and I know that her legacy will continue to be a source of inspiration both here at Princeton and far beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And now we come to the moment that we hope will be stamped in our memories forever, the dedication of the Toni Morrison Forever Stamp. To do the honors, we have Preetha Mehra, the Chief Information Officer and Executive Vice President of the U.S. Postal Service, and Deborah Feingold, the photographer, who took the picture that the stamp is based on. Preetha oversees one of the largest technology infrastructures in the world, with 5 national deployment and solution centers, 32,000 network locations, 20,000 servers, and more than 930 applications of more than 180,000 devices, which 65,000 employees, and the delivery of 127 billion mail pieces a year. Right? I don't know how she managed to get away for today. As a direct report to the Postmaster General, Ms. Mira is an expert on digital transformation and innovation at scale. As you can imagine, it's an enormous undertaking, especially these days when we rely so much on the organization for the delivery of checks and correspondence, medicines, food, supplies, all those things that we order now online. Please give a warm welcome to Preetha Mira. Yes, she'll have more to say.
Thank you, Michael, for that kind introduction. Yes, we are very vast. So, and I'm sure you'll find a post office near you to buy these stamps, although they will be available here. So it's wonderful to see all of you here. Thank you for being here. It's a privilege for me to represent the 650,000 men and women of the Postal Service as we dedicate the New Forever stamp honoring Toni Morrison. One of the goals of our stamp program is to raise awareness and celebrate the people who represent the very best of our nation. And Toni Morrison certainly deserves this recognition, for she is certainly one of the most admired and greatest of all American authors, a writer whose works offer a compelling narrative of the Black experience in America. We'll have more to say about this in a few minutes, but first I want to invite our guests to join me for the official dedication of the Toni Morrison Forever stamp. So let's do this. Well, she really holds the room, doesn't she?
Always.
So art director Ethel Kessler designed the stamp using a photograph taken by our very own Deborah Feingold. We think you'll agree, like the woman herself, the Toni Morrison stamp is both beautiful and powerful. Deborah will be able to tell us a bit more about this iconic portrait in just a few minutes. So as you heard, Toni's novels include The Bluest Eye, Sula, Song of Solomon, Tar Baby, Beloved, Jazz, and Paradise. But she also published poetry, children's books and essays, and led the creative team behind the Black Book. She received many honors, including the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, the National Humanities Medal, and the Presidential Medal for Freedom. And in 1993, she made history as the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. In 1996, Oprah's book club would introduce Toni Morrison to millions of new readers with the selection of Song of Solomon. Eventually, Sula, Paradise, and The Bluest Eye would also be featured in the book club. She's one of more than any other author, yeah. My introduction to Toni was Beloved, the heartbreaking tragedy that was shocking in places and overwhelming emotionally. But like everyone else, I fell in love with her language, its undeniable power and poetry, its ability to grab you or not let you go. I would like to conclude with a few words from the author herself, for I believe no one could tell us more about Toni Morrison than Toni Morrison herself. This is from her Nobel acceptance speech 30 years ago in 1993. Quote, I entered this hall pleasantly haunted by those who have entered it before me. That company of laureates is both daunting and welcoming, for among its lists are names of persons whose work has made whole worlds available to me. The sweep and specificity of their art have sometimes broken my heart with the courage and clarity of its vision. The astonishing brilliance with which they practice their craft has challenged and nurtured my own. My debt to them rivals the profound one I owe to the Swedish Academy for having selected me to join that distinguished alumnae. She continued, early in October, an artist friend left a message which I kept on the answering machine for weeks and played back every once in a while just to hear the trembling pleasure in her voice and the faith in her words. My dear sister, she said, the prize that is yours is also ours and could not have been placed in better hands. The spirit of her message, with its earned optimism and sublime trust, marks this end, this day for me, end quote. And now, 3 decades later, the Postal Service is proud to honor Toni Morrison with one more tribute, our new stamp that will be seen by millions and forever remind us of the power of her words and the ideas she brought to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Preetha. Now I'm delighted to present the photographer, Deborah Feingold, whose portrait of Toni Morrison was used for this stamp. Feingold's portraits of political, artistic, and literary figures have appeared in Rolling Stone magazine, the New York Times, Time magazine, Newsweek, and countless other national and international publications. Please welcome Deborah Feingold.
In December of 1997, I received an assignment from Time magazine to photograph Toni Morrison. Naturally, I was very nervous because the photo was for the cover of the magazine, but even more so because it was of the prolific Toni Morrison. The day of the shoot arrived, and she graciously invited me into her home. Collaborating throughout the day, I photographed her in different outfits while posing against different backgrounds. For even the most seasoned subjects, this process can be exhausting. But Toni remained focused and present. Her expression for every frame was one of kindness. I have never taken that photo shoot for granted. And standing in front of you today, I humbly admit that this is beyond an honor. Toni Morrison's achievements and the respect for her work are being recognized in such an iconic way through this stamp. Speaking of stamps, on a personal note, I am the woman who has been to the National Postal Museum many times. I am also that person who makes you wait in line at your local post office while insisting on being shown every stamp that's available that day. I would like to thank Princeton University, the Morrison family, and the United States Postal Service for including me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Now it's my pleasure to present Carla Hayden, America's 14th Librarian of Congress. She is the first woman and the first African American to serve as chief executive of the largest library in the world, which contains 162 million items in its collections. Nominated for her post by President Barack Obama, she's also the first professional librarian to hold the post since 1974. The Library of Congress is, of course, a national resource, which many of the people in the room will know from using it one fashion or another. It not only makes its research collections accessible to the public on site and online, it also oversees U.S. copyright, the U.S. Copyright Office and the Congressional Research Service. Everyone, please give a big welcome to Dr. Carla Hayden.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. President, our friends from the United States Postal Service, the faculty, staff, and students of Princeton University, and of course, the family and friends of Toni Morrison. I especially appreciate this invitation to celebrate one of our nation's greatest writers. As you can imagine, as a librarian, this is truly a special honor to be here. Toni Morrison's impact on literature and reading is immeasurable. She had one of the most unique and original voices, and I can remember in Chicago and in Baltimore, library patrons eagerly awaiting her new books, and there was always a waiting line and a waiting list to check her latest. This was the case not only in Chicago and Baltimore, where I worked, but in libraries throughout the country. She filled the world with prose that touched millions of readers worldwide. And through her novels, children's books, and essays, she communicated the Black experience on a canvas writ large for audiences who knew it firsthand, as well as for those who learned, perhaps for the first time, about the stinging and horrific aftermath of treating fellow human beings as less than equal. Ms. Morrison's works are, of course, an important part of the library's literary collections, and that includes the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress had a special connection to her. In 2000, the Library of Congress named her a living legend, and in 2011, it awarded her the Library of Congress National Book Festival Creative Achievement Award. And during her appearance at the Library of Congress National Book Festival that same year, she told the audience she learned early on that words have power. From first learning to read from her sister to encouraging her students to become critical readers, she opened everyone's eyes in understanding our collective history and ourselves. She was able to communicate in prose both poetic and powerful her message of the importance of humanity and righteousness in a world that sometimes seems to impart neither. The Library of Congress was proud to be able to present her to appreciative audiences on several occasions throughout the years. And like today's commemorative stamp, the Library of Congress is also honored to retain a physical manifestation of her legacy on the campus of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. In 2017, a bench was installed in front of the library's historic Thomas Jefferson building in collaboration with the Toni Morrison Society as part of its Bench by the Road project, which recognizes African Americans who fought in various ways to improve the lot of their people throughout U.S. history. The bench, right in front of the Library of Congress and right next to the U.S. Capitol, is dedicated to Daniel A.P. Murray, the first African American Assistant Librarian of Congress and the founder of the library's collection of African American literature. So, on behalf of librarians, and most importantly, readers all over the world, we continue to say thank you to Toni Morrison for her words, her spirit, her intellect, and her light. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank the U.S. Postal Service for commemorating her in a very special way.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. Our next speaker is Jean Jarrett, Princeton's Dean of the Faculty and the William S. Dodd Professor of English. A graduate of Princeton in 1997, Dean Jarrett is an acclaimed author as well. His latest book is Paul Laurence Dunbar, The Life and Times of a Caged Bird, hailed as one of the best biographies of 2022 by The New Yorker and other publications. Again, available at independent bookstores near you. Other notable works include Representing the Race, A New Political History of African American Literature, and Dean's and Truant's Race and Realism in African American Literature. As you'll hear, he has a very special connection to the woman we're celebrating today. So please help me in welcoming Dean Jean.
Stamp Paid is the nickname of a minor yet meaningful character in Toni Morrison's 1987 novel, Beloved. Born Joshua, he renamed himself after he concluded that only benevolence could pay his moral debt to the world. In the years before the Civil War, whether by road or by river, he shepherded runaways from slavery to freedom. Besides this Underground Railroad, Stamp Paid took to heart his motto that you paid it, now life owes you, as he put it, by protecting slaves in yet another way. Whole families lived on the bones and guts he distributed to them, the novel says. He wrote their letters and read to them the ones they received. When Toni Morrison first published these lines 36 years ago in her Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, she captured how letters on pages could open the minds of the enslaved to the promise of franchise and freedom, how letters and envelopes could link the friends and families whose bonds slavery had torn asunder, and how the lettered, or those who fought against all odds to learn how to read, could build a sense of moral purpose to secure a more humane future when their liberty could thrive unfettered and when their rights as citizens could prosper. Featuring Toni Morrison on United States Stamp today, of course, attests to how far we've come in valuing the diversity of contributions to American life and culture. In 1847, when a 5-cent postage stamp bore the portrait of Benjamin Franklin and a 10-cent stamp showed the portrait of George Washington, we were entering a 19th century chapter of national iconography. This chapter featured such founding fathers as Franklin, Washington, and Thomas Jefferson, and later such presidents as Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant. Not until well into the 20th century, such as in the 1940 series of Famous Americans, the 1965 series of Prominent Americans, and the 1980 series of Great Americans, could we enjoy an expanded commemoration of national citizens on U.S. stamps to include women, African Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans. Today, we can finally extol a canonical lineage of African American women writers who have appeared on U.S. stamps. Ida B. Wells in 1990, Zora Neale Hurston in 2003, Anna Julia Cooper in 2009, Gwendolyn Brooks in 2012, Maya Angelou in 2015, and Nella Larson in 2020. For Toni Morrison's image to grace the stamp in 2023 consummates further the supreme stature her life and career have achieved in the 21st century. Yet Toni Morrison's own literary words caution us not to praise unwittingly the diversity of subjects in American culture, whether in literature or on the stamp, at the expense of grasping why such diversity enables America to excel as a nation among nations in the world. In her endowed lectures at the University of Michigan in 1988 and at Harvard in 1990, both of which informed her classic 1992 book, Playing in the Dark, Toni Morrison asserted that the lives of African Americans, both their ancestors and their descendants, not only enriched our scope of American history, these lives widened our appreciation of what it means to be an American. By circulating more than 3,000 images during close to 2 centuries, the U.S. stamp has been one of the most prominent devices to link us to one another in this country and across the globe, whether literally through postal mail or symbolically through national iconography. While Toni Morrison's image on the stamp welcomes us as consumers, the legacy of her intellect, of her artistry, welcomes us as thinkers. We must ensure that the story of democracy and national citizenship, told across generations by the U.S. stamp, culminates with a resolutely inclusive idea of what it means to be an American. This nation demonstrates its greatest cultural potential, in other words, when all its diverse array of talent is included, that is, embraced and enhanced for the greater good. Toni Morrison is one of the most accomplished and distinguished faculty members ever to grace the campuses of higher education, from Howard University to Princeton University. The Nobel laureate and renowned professor enlightened scores of former students, including myself, but also teachers and readers around the world, to the timeless insight of literature, to the history and complexity of the human condition. Today, we celebrate her image on the U.S. stamp not merely for what her image represents in the story of national progress. This occasion reminds us of the remarkable American story in which Stamp Paid, any way he could, reckoned with owing a moral debt to his society. Indeed, it was that very American story to which Toni Morrison devoted her literature until the very end, so that we could better comprehend our own life and times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gene. And I trust I won't risk the wrath of my dean, sort of by adding that the dean mentioned that he was a student of Toni's. He was a student in 2 of her courses, and one that was an American literature kind of survey, and then another was a course that he and some of his fellow students got together, where they went through Toni's work with her, right, in her office at 185 Nassau. Where she was always based. Sort of interesting to note that his senior thesis was about William Faulkner, and that would have spoken to Toni because her master's thesis was about Virginia Woolf and William Faulkner, right? And to show, I mean, sort of, we know her primarily as a novelist, those of us who are readers, but there is this teaching legacy as well. So sort of the dean was Toni's student, and if you are lucky enough to go over to the Princeton University Library and see the exhibition that Chris mentioned earlier, that exhibition was curated by Professor Autumn Womack, our English department, and she was a student of Gene's. So these filiations, I mean, the ways in which a life can sort of impact so many people in so many different ways are very much on view today. Our next speaker is another distinguished scholar. Ruha Benjamin is professor of African American Studies here at Princeton. She is founding director of the Ida B. Wells Just Data Lab and author of Race After Technology, Abolitionist Tools for the New Jim Crow. And Viral Justice, We Grow the World We Want. Her work investigates the social dimensions of science, medicine, and technology with a focus on the relationship between innovation and inequity, health, and justice, knowledge, and power. She has the honor today, a very specific task, of reading a letter from former President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome to the podium Professor Ruha Benjamin.
She is a friend of my mind. She gather me, man, the pieces I am. She gather them and give them back to me in all the right order. My favorite passage from Beloved. It's my pleasure to read a letter from former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. We are grateful to Pete Sousa for this beautiful photograph that I think is going to pop up on the screen of President Obama and Toni Morrison. We're honored to join Morrison's family and everyone gathered here in celebrating one of the world's greatest storytellers. Toni told fundamental truths about our country and the human condition. But she didn't just reflect what was true. She helped generations of Black Americans reimagine what was possible. That's why we return to her stories again and again, finding new meaning each time. And anyone who was lucky enough to meet her knows that she was just as captivating in person as she was on the page. We hope that this new postage stamp would make her smile, that she would love the idea of helping us connect through writing once again. Toni may no longer be with us, but we know that her words will endure, challenging our conscience and calling us to greater empathy. For that, we will always be grateful. Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Thank you.
Thank you, Ra. Next, we have another very special message. This one from Oprah Winfrey. Let me point out that Oprah Winfrey has an honorary doctorate from Princeton, in 2002, and played a very special role in the establishment of Toni Morrison's reputation. Right? Even after the Nobel Prize, sales of her books did not notably skyrocket. But after Oprah Winfrey, in the first or second year of her book club, introduced the country to Song of Solomon, suddenly she became what she always deserved to be, a household name. So Oprah Winfrey couldn't be here with us today, but she did share her tribute to Toni Morrison via video. So please.
Hello, everyone, and a special howdy-do to all the members of Ms. Toni Morrison's family there today to bear witness to this incredible moment in American history, honoring such a powerful legend. You know, Toni Morrison's books are in so many of our homes and abide in our hearts because she served as a catalyst for generations of readers over the years to understand the power of reading and words. It was over 20 years ago that I had a desire to start a book club, and everybody at the time told me it would never work on broadcast television. But I knew that what I wanted to do was to create an environment where people could gather and open our minds to explore great books. And over the years, I selected 4 of Toni Morrison's books to read as a community, more than any other author. And I remember when we had Toni on the show for the first time to talk about Song of Solomon, I shared with her that, Miss Morrison, sometimes your books are challenging and difficult for some people to read. And she said, well, think about how difficult they are to write. Correct. But difficult or not, what she was able to do through her words was bring people from all over the country and the world together in an entirely new experience. I recall being so surprised when women in Brazil and women in India and women from Asia and Mexico and all around the world, as well the United States, were telling us how much they saw themselves as Pecola Breedlove in The Bluest Eye. And it was when she was there for The Bluest Eye that she shared one of her most profound stories. She told the story of being a young mother, raising Slade and Ford, and as young boys, when they'd come into the room, the first thing she said, she would greet them with a critical eye. She said she would ask, did you comb your hair? Pull up those socks. Tuck in your shirt. Ford, you may remember some of that. She said she realized that her love for her boys and desire for them to do well was often met with a critical eye, but she realized that what children want to feel loved is, does your face light up when I enter the room? Do your eyes light up? Are you glad to see me? Ooh, my goodness, that was so powerful. So much so that at the time I could hear mothers in the audience gasping. It was such an enlightening moment. I was at an airport recently and a woman came up to me and told me that that moment with Toni Morrison on the show changed the way she parented forever. I will be forever grateful for her work and know that we will always have Toni Morrison in our lives because we will always have her words. And now we have this commemorative stamp. So thank you everyone for being there today to honor her and her magnificent life.
Pretty cool. Let me welcome back to the stage the singers from Old Na Soul, and this will bring us towards the closing moments of our ceremony. So thank you.
Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches over me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches. I know he watches. I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask for you all to please stand for the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the heart rejoicing, rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on. Let us march on till victory is won. Is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who has brought us thus far on the way, Thou who has by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, oh God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land. Land.
So let me just conclude with a few thank yous and announcements to share. First, to Preetha Mira and the U.S. Postal Service. A lot of work goes into these things, I've discovered, and so thank you for sort of what you helped us achieve here, and thank you for choosing to honor Toni Morrison with this beautiful Forever stamp. Thank you for photographer Deborah Feingold. For the photograph and for the story, to Dr. Carla Hayden from the Library of Congress. And of course, to my fellow Princetonians, Chris Eisgruber, Jean Jarrett, Rua Benjamin, the Old Nass Soul a cappella group that you just heard. And to the Princeton Army ROTC Honor Guard. And of course, thank you to each of you for coming out today to honor Toni. When she won the Nobel Prize, she said, there are a lot of different communities that are going to love this moment. They're loving it in Ohio. They're loving it in New Jersey. They're loving it in Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania was what? New York. And I'm being honored as a woman. I'm being honored as a Black woman. I feel like we get to relive that moment in coming together for this particular celebration. So thanks for making this a wonderful experience. I'd like to invite now members of Toni Morrison's family to the stage so that they have an opportunity to have their photographs taken in relation to the picture of the stamp, and also to join us in the commemoration of this historic occasion. And then we'll the participated in today's program will join with them maybe for one last photo op. And remember, hashtag Toni Morrison stamp. We'll then take a few moments to prepare the stage so that our panel will be able to autograph your programs and your keepsakes should you wish us to do that. And remember that you can buy your Toni Morrison stamps at the Postal Service's retail booth located right outside in the foyer, right? So you can be among the first. And again, I'm going to encourage you to take the opportunity, perhaps today, sometime in the weeks, to visit Princeton's comprehensive collection of Toni Morrison's papers at the Princeton University Library, many of which are on display in the exhibition I mentioned earlier, curated by Professor Autumn Womack, entitled Toni Morrison, Sites of Memory. Right, thanks a lot. It was an honor to be invited to do this, and it's an honor to be part of the human race that has that as one of its members. How bad can we be? The family. Ford, I think I see you there. Yes.